Hi, I'm Matt Little. I'm the Director of Counselling and Education at Empowering Awareness.Asia, and I'm a proud sponsor of this podcast.
Hi, hi, Erika.
Hey, Sai. Good to be on here again.
Thank you very much for accepting my request and coming to my show again.
Well, I had a really fun time last time, so it was no problem at all.
So, can you please introduce yourself to my audience for watching you for the first time?
Yes. So my name's Erika Dietrick. I'm a developer advocate at Cisco Systems. I've been in the role for just over a year now, and my primary areas of focus are AI and cybersecurity, although we do have an audience of largely network engineers. And I guess, I don't know, do they need to know what a developer advocate does, or?
Yeah, a bit. Can you tell me a bit about developer advocate means?
Yes. So I describe its people as being 50% technical. And so I will learn new technologies, create POCs and sample code, etc. And then 50% communication based. So I'm giving presentations at Cisco Live. I'm on social media educating people and wherever else I want to be.
So, you're from?
I'm currently in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, USA.
So you're working on AI and cybersecurity. So, how is going on? And last time we had conversation and you said about it. And how is the development and what all you did?
So it's going well. I can definitely say that, there was a startup period, right? Because as a developer with a background in some network engineering, I was interested in AI and cybersecurity, but I certainly didn't consider myself an expert. And so I spent a long time joining a lot of different communities, going to conferences, training myself in these areas so that I could educate our community on things that I thought were relevant to them. So it's not just any AI or cybersecurity concepts, it's things I think have good use cases. So, two examples of what I've been highly involved in are first, I've been following and learning AI coding assistants very closely because that is the future. So comparing different AI coding assistants, showing how people can use them in a practical sense versus just, oh, it generates it all or makes it better, you know? So kind of providing that roadmap. Um, I'm teaching a session in February about how to teach people to code using AI, which I'm excited about. And then on the cybersecurity side, I have recently started a podcast called the DevSec Voice. So it's really bringing together the developer or coding community with the cybersecurity community to bridge that gap. There's a lot of interesting and unexplored topics between the two communities that I think would, make our products stronger, make our community stronger, etc.
So, so you said the use cases. Can you explain some of the use cases as a developer advocate?
Use cases for the AI part or the cyber or either.
AI part.
Yeah, so the AI coding assistance, part of why I chose to pursue that versus, I don't know, how to create your own LLM or comparing LLMs is because most people I know are going to be impacted AI, but they don't need to understand everything under the hood, right? There's a lot going on there. People are getting entire degrees in, neural networks and data science and machine learning, and that's all great, and I'd love to understand that at some point too, but it's not practical. So from a practical sense, people need to understand what tools exist out there, which ones are actually effective, right? Because we all know from the AI hype that some people are just churning out tools and some are crap. And then practical use cases. I teach a number of different use cases, kind of depending on the person and their role. But one example is you can use it to import all related libraries for a task you want to complete. Does this audience know how to code, or should I keep it pretty high level?
Yeah, it's okay. You can speak. I will
Okay.
ask you in a simplest. Yeah.
So as an example, as a network engineer, maybe you're not coding every single day, even though you know how to code. And so maybe you import, the request library or another library you need to write your script, but you just can't remember the other Python libraries involved. Well, I teach GitHub Copilot, but AI coding assistants, will understand the context of what it is you're trying to accomplish, and they will auto-suggest the other libraries for you. So some of it's about efficiency, because a lot of us aren't coding every day. Some of it is about becoming a better developer. So you can use it to refactor your code. As an example, a lot of people infamously don't like naming their variables and functions, things that make sense. They just want to go, and they'll name things X and Y, and then no one can read it later. Well, you can use an AI coding assistant to suggest variable names later on if you don't want to sit there and think about it, or maybe you're not good at it. But the list of use cases really goes on and on. If you're debugging your code, it can suggest troubleshooting steps based on error codes and stack traces. I ask the Copilot chats a lot of questions. Honestly, I think that is the best benefit of these assistants, is instead of random Google searching and, clicking through and reading 10 different links that may or may not be helpful, you can ask a question to a coding assistant's chat feature and just have an instant, summarized, beautiful response with references included. I've used that to learn TypeScript over the course of like a week. I've learned it to use natural language processing libraries like that. So that's just a few examples in the AI space.
So before that, after that, what is the change that you're observing in you?
What is it that I'm building?
No. Before using AI for coding and after using AI for coding. So what is the difference that you are observing in yourself?
Yes. So there's a few different changes. One is less context switching. So context switching is when you have to constantly change tabs or software while working. And all of us find this annoying, right? To have like 50 Chrome tabs open and your IDE and whatever else you're using. So most of these assistants have extensions for your IDE. And so from now on, I can just stay in one place, and I can learn, and I can search, and I can debug, and I can code all in one place. Saves so much time, so much frustration. The second thing is that I personally, I don't know if other people are doing this yet, but I'm telling people that they can do more comment-driven development. And so what would happen is you would think logically through a program or script you want to write, and you would code that, right? But now you can use comments that explain the different sections of your code that you want to have, or the different functionality you want to have. And if it's a well-written comment, it acts sort of like a prompt, right? Like when you use ChatGPT, and it will generate that code for you. Obviously, there's limitations. It's not perfect. So there's a switch to comment-driven development. And I would say the only other thing workflow-wise that has, well, it depends on if you're part of a team or not. If you're part of a team, I think it has raised a lot of questions for code quality, because code churn has went up a lot. And code churn is when someone commits their code to GitHub, and then within a couple of weeks it needs to be fixed because it was garbage. So it raises a lot of issues around that. It's changed a lot of things about hiring developers and people who can code. What do they actually know versus is AI generated? But yeah, I think that it's mostly just speed to productivity, speed to learning, removing frustration tolerance for me.
And what all those things they need to keep in their mind when they are using this? I mean,
Great question. I'm so glad that you asked that.
the negative side.
Yes. So the main thing that people need to keep in mind is that these are assistants and they are not the brain. So you still have to use your brain. I think a lot of people, when these tools came out, were expecting some sort of like futuristic iRobot situation where, I'm just going to, provide a prompt for the app idea I have, and it's going to generate the whole thing. And it's really not there yet. Maybe some years down the line, but we're nowhere near that right now. So at this point in time, people need to know that it's more reliable the less you're asking it to generate and the more specific you are about what you want generated. And even once you generate it, it is an assistant, right? You are still the person with the knowledge and the know-how. You're responsible for evaluating, did it come up with, first of all, running code? And second of all, is it code of the quality you would expect, or do you need to make changes? So those are the first things to keep in mind. Another thing is that because it is using a probabilistic model, or a lot of these assistants are using a probabilistic model, you're not going to get the same output every single time, even if you give it the same input. And so not being frustrated when it gives you something different is something to keep in mind. I think the final thing that is most important to keep in mind is that just because you don't like one particular assistant doesn't mean that you won't like another, because behind the scenes, everyone's using a different large language model. And all of them have been trained on different criteria. Some of them are more accurate than others. And so I know, like, for instance, when Google's Gemini came out, which is like the little AI blurb that comes at the top of your Google searches now, it was just trash. I mean, I think it's improved since, but that was some people's first encounter with using AI, and they're like, well, I'm not going to use AI, it's garbage, it's not helpful. But the truth is, all of these companies have their own LLMs, and some of them are great, but not for coding, right? You just have to keep all this in mind.
So when it comes to the security thing, when you're using AFI coding, so what do you say, for security purpose?
So I do have some people who are concerned about the security implications. So GitHub Copilot, right? I mean, they are storing your prompts and some other information. And I mean, and you can opt out of some of this depending on the subscription you're paying for. These companies, a lot of them have responsible AI policies where, they basically lay out, forever and always, we will never claim to own any part of your code. Even if there's a discrepancy, it's all yours, whatever. And I think that it's great that these companies have these policies. However, it would be a lot more comforting if government could catch up and there could be some actual legal protections around IP. So some people are going to trust the responsible AI policy and some people aren't, no matter what. And I won't touch that. But if you're somebody who has a lot of privacy concerns and you do not trust these corporations, you can host your own LLMs and your own coding assistants locally. So one of the tools that I really like for doing this is Pieces for Developers, because you can choose from a bunch of different models. And you can do it all local. And there's some other cool benefits.
So what is the major difference that you're observing, when it comes to coding without AI and with AI?
So if somebody is coding with AI effectively and not just trying to churn out code, I think that it's just really removed the ceiling of what's possible. That's the biggest difference I've noticed, because coding is, slow and frustrating for a lot of people, especially if you're not doing the same thing every day. There's a lot of conversation about the 10x developer and how, you should be able to code in your sleep. You should be able to code really quickly, whatever. So if you, for instance, are an application developer and you're developing the same types of apps all the time in the same language and that's all you do, then sure, you're going to be pretty fast at that and maybe see less of a gain from AI. But there is a large swath of people who they code a variety of projects, or they just code as part of their job, or maybe they are asked to switch between languages in between jobs, right? And so for these people, they are much less likely to be slowed down by the fact that they don't work in a language every single day. So leaps and bounds in terms of productivity. And again, it comes down to the learning. So for instance, if I had wanted to learn TypeScript, specifically I was trying to create a VS Code extension, if that's useful information. But if I had wanted to learn TypeScript so that I could create a VS Code extension, I might have to buy a TypeScript book or two, or purchase a bunch of online courses, do a bunch of Google searches, and I would painfully go through the process of learning TypeScript and practicing different parts. And then when I went to go develop the VS Code extension, I'd have to navigate a ton of documentation, which newsflash, I did try to do, and it was awful. It was I could not understand the API even after going through the documentation. So, instead, I used my Copilot chat, and as someone who understands coding concepts, I could just ask basic questions about TypeScript and how TypeScript works, and then, okay, I'm already coding day one. I could ask it how the VS Code extension API works instead of reading the documentation. Then, here's a direct answer. I'm immediately coding. So the things I'm telling you are definitely most felt by people who code a lot because they understand just how frustrating these things are, and it's why some people leave the field because it's a frustrating job.
Great. So when it comes to cybersecurity, what do you say about it?
In terms of like the kind of stuff I'm covering, like what kind of
Yes,
stuff
you
am I
are
covering?
covering. Yeah, you are covering.
So the cybersecurity stuff has been a little bit of an adventure experiment, right? Because I was new to this. So some of what I'm covering is just my experience venturing into cybersecurity as a developer, and basically all these things I notice about the walls between these communities when really, innovation and security should be hand in hand, and kind of my experience attending conferences. But some of the areas of focus I've had are on Gen AI security. So that is another one of my presentations coming up in February. I've been going to Black Hat, DEF CON, and then doing my own research and training courses to truly understand the Gen AI security landscape, which is quite difficult because it's new, it's evolving, and truly no one has 100% a plan around that. The other things I have talked about, well, it's changing some, but my next podcast episode, I'll spoil it even if it comes out before my podcast episode, but I'm trying to bridge the gap between different security or hacking concepts and development. An example of that would be a lot of people and companies have WordPress sites. People trash WordPress, but everybody from the small business owner to major companies and celebrities are using WordPress. However, there are some commonly known ways that it can be hacked. And so as a developer and someone with IT awareness, how can I teach people to harden their WordPress sites? That would be an example of something I'm teaching. Another example is securely managing and calling your credentials. So if you're using an API, you've got a sensitive API key. If you're not supposed to directly code it into your code, then what do you do to call on it? Those are the kinds of things that I've been preparing.
So when last time we had conversation, you said more about developer advocacy, you interacting with the customers and trying to understand their requirement and communicating with the developers. So now you are into using AI for coding and cybersecurity. So what's the transformation?
I mean, there's been a lot of transformation. It's really hard to answer that succinctly, to be honest, because I would say even as an organization, we've been changing a lot. And that's because, AI and cybersecurity is changing the tech landscape, right? Everybody is kind of trying to shift and figure out where they fit in this whole AI puzzle. And that includes us developer advocates at Cisco, and especially me as a new person. So, the transformation basically involved me starting out talking to the community, mostly through social media, and just trying to understand who is part of the Cisco DevNet community. What is it, the things that they care about? For some of the things they don't care about, which, AI is, somewhat cared about, somewhat not, how can I make that useful to them? And it was really just a lot of conversation, which I know is not very, I don't want to say not valued by companies, but there's no output or result when you're just talking to people, right? But it's really, really important. And so I was able to tailor, how I act as a developer advocate, what content I provide, what I study based on those conversations. And so that's where I realized, hey, there's this huge need to understand and implement AI and cybersecurity practices but nobody knows any of it. I don't know some of it, so let's go out and do that. Made a lot of mistakes along the learning journey and building journey, but that's to be expected. Somebody had to, look stupid. And, so now I'm in the phase of my journey where I think that I'm really picking up steam and I'm actually teaching people versus just being on the learning side and sharing that journey. So, it's actually been very rewarding because I feel like I can actually help people at this point.
So you're more into development now than, advocacy.
That's so hard to answer. Developer advocacy is so changing and also misunderstood. I mean, the way that I've been describing it to people is that we work in seasons. So, for instance, I am essentially required to present at Cisco Live 3 times a year, and that involves a lot of work. And so, right around the time of Cisco Live every year, it's a lot of focus on presentations and that gathering everything that we've learned and built over the course of that period of time, and then delivering the event, recovering from the event. However, in the in-between times are where I'm trying to actually develop things. So neither one of them happens all at the same time. It's really a matter of when can I squeeze in development time? When can I squeeze in learning time? And balancing all of those things.
So what is the difference that you are seeing in yourself, before and after, coming into more into understanding AI, into AI for coding and also cybersecurity?
The differences I have noticed is I think I've become a lot more confident. Initially when I started the role, it's a developer program, but it's for network engineers. It's historically for network automation. And even though I have my CCNA and some network engineering background, my developer experience really has not been related to that. So there was already a little bit of lack of confidence around how can I provide things that are valuable. And then especially when I was asked, can you start a podcast? I was like, well, I don't even listen to podcasts, so how am I going to make a good podcast and how am I going to make it on this topic? Throughout the entire journey, I have honestly been very, very terrified. And it's only been recently through forcing myself both to learn and forcing myself to put my ideas and journey out there that I have started to gain confidence. I don't know that much else has changed, I guess, besides just getting smarter. But the confidence is important, right? Because so many people lack the confidence to make these changes as technologies changes, and they lack the confidence, for instance, to be on social media. So, yeah.
So you're observing the AI, changing actually the things that should be made, in the software development. So what are your thoughts about it? Like where we are today, compared to a few years ago, like, and where we are going?
So the talks, they're somewhat limited right now to things, again, that the network engineering community might care about and that Cisco Live prioritizes. So I have a lot of interest, but for Cisco Live, the first session is teaching coding skills in the age of AI. So I have a lot of network engineers, IT managers, and directors approach me at Cisco Live and say, we're trying to upskill our engineers, but there's no roadmap. Like, we have no idea where to send them to, where to start, how much is too much. And so that session is creating a custom tailored roadmap with some training materials for them. So I'm honestly very excited about the impact that's going to have. The session that I've delivered a couple times already and gotten distinguished speaker for both times is AI-powered scripting with GitHub Copilot. So a lot of what I've been sharing with you during this podcast session is from that research and practice, and that is just very much, hey, this is how we used to code and some of the roadblocks we used to have. This is what an AI coding assistant is. These are all the different ways that you can imagine using it, so now you know. And here's what you should do moving forward with this assistant. Those are the two AI-specific sessions. Oh, I'm doing natural language processing using Python too, but that's fairly introductory and just teaching people things like lemmatization, um, and then the Gen AI security session. So understanding Gen AI security from a big picture view, and then what kind of security measures do you need to consider implementing. So I know that was a lot of stuff, but yeah, there's a lot of other interest, but obviously I've got to serve the Cisco community first and foremost.
So two different domains. AI for coding is using brain what to do and what not to do, and how to make it effective in order to make the increase the productivity. That is on one
Exactly.
side. That is on one side, and other side, you are trying to understand software security and implications of security, and making people feel secure by
Yep, you hit the nail on the
providing.
head. Because both
Yes.
are being
So two.
neglected right now. People are just like, AI, AI. Okay,
Yes.
but what is the practicalities?
So can I say you are the perfect person to say about both the things, because both are important.
Well, I don't know if I'm the most perfect person, but I am somebody you could go to about it.
So what do you say if people ask you, you are into advanced technology and using it, and you are the user of it, and on the other side, you are into the protection and the security. So what do you say if people ask you, why you are interested in two different things?
Like what, how do they react when I tell them that?
No, no, what you answer to them, like what your
Oh,
explanation.
I don't think I have a good explanation to be totally honest. I mean, for instance, right now on my LinkedIn profile, I just say I'm a developer advocate in AI and cybersecurity, but I think if I'm being honest, I think I am, producing a lot of valuable things, but I don't have a great way of explaining it to people. I mean, what you said just a moment ago about, teaching how to practically use and then protecting, that's probably the closest thing to how I've been explaining it. But I mean, that's a challenge I've always faced as a generalist anyway, is how do I explain to people what I know, what I do, what I can do? It's an ongoing challenge.
And any other points that you have missed, when it comes to AI for coding, that helps at the same time that people needs to put in their mind while using it.
Um, I think a couple of things is, first of all, it's not AI all good or AI all bad. It's nuanced like most things in life. And what's most important is that you are trying to learn to use an assistant. You are practicing ways to put it into your workflow, whether you love it or totally understand how to do that or not, because it's not going away. The second thing is that, I think might have just lost it, but a lot of people get hung up on, what's the best tool or assistant or model to use? Starting out, it really, as long as you were using an assistant that's built for coding, I don't think it really matters, right? Once you are some sort of coding assistant expert, then sure, compare the models and their outputs, but I don't think there's a big enough difference between all of them that you need to get in some sort of war with other people, or that it should prevent you from using one. And that is one of the biggest things I say in one of my talks is people say, well, I just use ChatGPT for my coding assistance. And, I'm like, it might produce helpful responses or accurate code, but it's a general purpose assistant, so it's not really the best assistant to use for coding. And so that's kind of the mindset I try to get people to think about is just, hey, it's not all good, it's not all bad. Use the assistants as they're intended to be used, and don't overthink it.
So you upgraded yourself, compared to our last session. So now you are into now you are into podcasting. So what is that, and why you want to do that, and how you're feeling it? Like it's a new thing that you're doing.
I get complimented a lot on my video skills and how I show up on camera, but there's a huge difference for me between a video that I'm the only one in it, I controlled it, I edited it, versus I'm on a mostly unedited podcast with a person that I can't predict how we'll interact. I mean, I commend you for being able to do so many of these episodes because it drives my anxiety up the wall. So that has been extremely difficult. I really only think it's been recently, now that I've got, I don't know, like 8 attempts at an episode at least under my belt, that I can kind of show up and not feel like I have to look perfect and that I have to say exactly the right things. And, I was doing copious amounts of research before every episode, like too much research. So it's going better. It's less nerve-wracking. I think it's still difficult to find enough guests. I don't know if you run into this with podcasting, but people aren't getting paid to show up on my podcast, and not everybody wants to be on camera, especially engineers, which is part of why I have moved to doing some of the episodes just on my own. But I am getting the swing of interesting topics to put on it. So that's what I think the major win has been, is my topics are becoming more interesting.
So that new person, that podcaster in you, what that person is, doing changes in the person that you have, who is a developer advocate in AI and cybersecurity. Like, how that is contributing to your profession.
Can you ask that again?
Yeah, I mean, how podcasting is helping you in your,
On the journey.
advocacy. Yeah.
I think there's a few different ways it's helping me. One is that it reaches a greater audience, right? So I'm on social media, I do the little clips, but there's only so much you can do in a little clip, and not everyone's on social media. So I think podcasting reaches a larger demographic. You can listen to it while you're washing the dishes or whatever. Again, I'm not a huge podcast person, but a lot of people are. It's growing. The second thing is that because I'm trying to maintain consistency in a certain cadence, I can't really stay on my heels. So I can't just learn something as slow as I want or take huge long breaks to procrastinate. I'm always thinking about what is the next interesting topic I want to present to people, and what is it going to take for me to learn and create before that episode. So I think it's accelerated my learning a lot. I think those would be the two main differences.
Great. Atlas, what do you say about yourself, about the new roles that you're doing and the experiences that you had to my audience for listening this?
Like, what do you want me to share? Like, what have I learned, or like just
Like with the experiences that you had, in this role, what do you suggest or what do you say to listeners about your role?
So first of all, I think my role can be a dream role or a worst nightmare depending on who you are. There's a lot of autonomy. I'm always learning something new. I get to be head down in the code and traveling and talking to people. So if you're kind of that well-rounded, maybe even entrepreneurial type personality, I think this is a super fun job, even in corporate. I would also say in general that now that I get to speak to so many people on a daily and weekly basis, there's a lot of things that I've learned about being an engineer and being in tech that I did not realize were very widespread and not just happening or felt by me. And so I think I would say to be, if you can help it, be less afraid of learning new things or applying for that job or really anything it is you want to do in tech, because everyone is having these same feelings about how difficult it is to keep up with emerging technology, about wondering if they are good enough in any particular technical skill, and feeling that the industry could be less competitive and less hard-ass. And I could really go on and on, but the point is that if you're feeling a certain way, or are afraid of something or want to take your career in a certain direction, just know that basically everyone else feels the same way. That's verified by me in my conversations.
Great. The last time I asked you, you said about me, and what is your observation about my work and my skill and the way that I'm doing my work?
So my favorite part about being on your podcast is that I think that you ask the best questions. And I've never asked you, I don't know if you're preparing them in advance or doing it on the spot, but I think that you have very good conversations because you ask great questions. And it doesn't seem to matter what the subject is. You can ask great questions, and that's a really great skill. And then I honestly think it's your dedication. I mean, you're putting out a crap ton of episodes. I mean, not a lot of people can maintain that kind of quality and productivity. And I know even like with personal things, right? Like you really don't let anything slow you down. I really commend that about you.
Yesterday I did 3 interviews and this is the fourth one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, I don't think I know anyone who is more productive podcast wise than you. So
It means a lot, you saying this.
yeah, no, and I didn't get to share it last time just because you were my very first podcast experience ever initially, so I was feeling very nervous. But I'm really excited just to share with everybody the extent of what it is you're building with this human network or human library. I just love your mindset around it too.
Can you share your online presence to my podcast listeners? Can you spell it so that they can follow you?
Yes. So my name is Erika Dietrick on LinkedIn, ErikaDietrick, and then I'm on X, Instagram, and TikTok, Erika underscore the dev, spelled THEDEV. And I'm doing a 100 post challenge right now, so I'm pretty active.
Great. Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Of course, yes.
Also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yes, use however you need.
Great. Thank you very much and keep inspiring and make a lot of things work. And I'm
Oh, yeah,
sure with
thanks.
your presence, with your presence, I'm sure a lot of things are going to change. Now you are into podcasting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes, that's where it's all going to change on this one podcast. No, thank you for the inspiration as well, Sai.
Great. Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.